perhaps the pursuit of happiness is the surest way to lead to a life of emptiness. This movie is based on a real story and a real life. The year was 1981. I think the man's name's Chris Gardner. In San Francisco, and he was a salesman for a company that made what's called a bone density scanner. A bone density scanner was in many ways a superior product to an X-ray and could tell when you had broken bones and some other issues in your skeletal system. The problem is most hospitals, most doctors did not have a budget for a bone density scanner where they did for an X-ray. It was much more expensive than an X-ray machine. And his job was to try to sell these scanners. And if he could just sell 3 per week, he made a good living. But not many people would buy a bone density scanner, and he was actually selling about 3 per month. And the financial pressures were great. And in the middle of this, he saw this stockbroker company, I think it's Dean Witter, and decided that he wanted to try out for a very prestigious 6-month internship program. Here's the catch. The internship program is not paid. But if you did well, they might offer you a job at the end of the 6 months. And so he decided that he would pursue this dream, which put pressure on his ability and time he had to sell, and the money was even less. His wife ended up leaving him and his, I think, 8-year-old son. And so the question is, am I going to do the easy thing, or am I going to keep at this internship and see where it takes me? And that scene was at the end of the 6 months, his last day. And by the way, they gave him the job offer, and the next day would be his first day paid as a stockbroker. I'm taking you ahead in the story. I believe it's about 8 years after this, he splits off from Dean Witter and starts his own company and does quite well. His dilemma here was whether to take any other job, any other path just to get by, or keep pursuing his dream. Is happiness a worthy pursuit? There's a book I read about 20 years ago, and it actually was quite a good book. It had an impact on me. It's not a heavy book at all. It's very readable. I would recommend it. And the title of the book is Happiness is a Serious Problem. Let me talk about that for a second. Here's my verse. I'm going to have 2 different verses today. First one is this, Proverbs 13:4. A sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. This has been a hard week. And by the way, the focus of the nation was on other places, turned to about 20 miles from here this week. Some of us are in Kenosha all the time because the Woodman's is up there, but now there's closer ones, so maybe we go to the one here. We live in the middle of a very strange time. I want to call it the great emptiness. And we're right in the middle of this time. Why do I call it the great emptiness? In many ways, what we're going through now is the natural result of what we've been doing as a culture for the last 40 years or 50 years. We've acted as if there's no external anything outside of us. There's no God. The idea of worshiping a God is mocked and belittled. There's not only that, but there's also no connection to the faith. There's no ritual, no mystery, nothing bigger or external that people are exposed to. Even connection to family has been diminished. And family's not important. We're to the point now where here's where we are culturally. I stand alone. I am my own island. I decide for myself. I determine value. Everything begins and ends with me. And into this void arrives a number of other things. And there's a brand new dogma that comes with it. in the first service, I messed up the name of the book, so I'm not going to do it for the second service. A lot of us in high school, we were forced to read. Back in the old days, we read classics. Now we determine classics by what gender and time period a book was written in, not by the value of the literature. We were forced to read a book called The Scarlet Letter about the 1600s, about in a pilgrim community, a young lady had an affair with an influential person in that community, and of course, his identity could never be revealed, but hers was, and she was forced to wear a scarlet A around so everybody could condemn her and look down on her. And there are whispers about her life, and you're not qualified, and you'll go to hell, and all the things that happen. And we read that book, and we go, oh, what an ancient, regressive, harsh culture. I'm so glad that we've left all that behind, except we've replaced it with a brand new dogma now. Now the new dogma is, instead of original sin, no, we have the world is ending, and just by living you're contributing to the destruction of the earth, and you have to realize that you're the problem, and so the result is you have to buy an electric car and put a windmill in your yard. Or you're part of this ancient regressive time, these ancient dumb people who used to think there's only two sexes or two genders. Now we know there's 27. And by the way, I use that number specifically because there are people who want to label 27. And I don't have enough brain power to follow that, nor do I want to. And by the way, if at any point, if you disagree with that new dogma, the new system of belief is not that you're in danger of hell, but look at Kenosha. We'll bring hell to you and burn your city and follow you to dinner and yell at you while you're trying to eat and call you names and everything else. If you believe nothing, you will believe anything. And we're in the middle of this mess. Other people have tried to build their life around the pursuit of a very surface level of happiness. Some do so through alcohol or drugs or serial relationships, thinking that the next person, the next event will fill the void, fill the gap, and it never does. Many heroin users spend the rest of their life chasing the experience of their very first high. And they'll chase that until their death. Other people, a constant party scene. From one to the next and the next, chasing that feeling. Anything to get away from the gnawing emptiness. Talking to people that I trust who, when they go to a lot of our junior highs and high schools and ask young people now, what do you want to be? What do you want to do when you get older? And the number one answer is, I want to be famous. Which is as shallow an answer as you could ever get. And by the way, famous in our culture has been replaced by, I want to have a lot of likes on my social media page. People say, I am happy when I do this, go here. And so they spend their life chasing after that elusive feeling. Anything we do, we run away from the quiet, run away from that voice that fills our head when we get to quiet. In pursuit of the experience, we forget that even as we pursue, we're really not necessarily happy. Life, as we all find out at some point, does not allow for the constant party. So eventually, it crashes for everyone. Crashes for the heroin user, crashes for the alcohol addicted, crashes for the people who are pursuing fame, crashes for the constant party goer. Perhaps the pursuit of happiness is the surest way to lead to a life of emptiness. That's kind of the theme for the book, Happiness is a Serious Problem. Nothing leads to emptiness quite as quickly or as certainly as chasing after it all the time. So the question is, if I want to live a life with a certain level of joy, a certain level of happiness, or a certain level of satisfaction, how on earth do I get there? Almost anything valuable in life, including joy and happiness, is the result of a long-term focus, not the chasing after short-term experiences. In the movie, the Will Smith character, it is at the end of this ordeal, and it was an ordeal, trying to take care of a son in an apartment and then losing the apartment. Then I think they're living out of their car for a while. And then it got to the end of this 6-month process, this ordeal. He found out he got the job, what he was always pushing for, and he goes, this is happiness. That kind of joy that's connected to something valuable, that's connected to work, connected to struggle, connected to discipline, lasts. Self-esteem connected to achievement is a wonderful thing. Self-esteem pursued for self-esteem's sake is sociopathy. Johnny didn't drool on his paper. We'll give him a gold star today. In the Will Smith character, this happiness came at the end of denial and discipline and diligence and sacrifice. Anything in life that has value always requires these things. Almost anything of true value cannot be received instantly. The only thing of value that can be received instantly is grace. Marriage. I like to think, and sometimes still think, that my wife and I are a young married couple. And we're rapidly running into 34 years here in just a couple months. We are actually at the longer end of marriage now. There is a joy, there is a sense of something worthwhile of having built something through the years. A lot of us, not just us, we think back to that apartment that was so small, that little house in Middletown, Ohio with mice. We think back of the flooded basement in Newton, Kansas, of the lizards on the screens in Marshall, Texas, and we laugh about it now. In fact, my wife had a little bird feeder that she hung up outside this like picture window of our family room in Marshall, Texas. And she put like corn and bird seed in. I can't remember what she had in it. But a lot of nights, the raccoons would jump up on the outside ledge and look at us inside while they were eating the corn out of the bird feeder. Everything worthwhile is a byproduct of discipline and faithfulness and even difficult days. If it had been easy for the Will Smith character, it wouldn't have given him joy. Joy is a result of moral self-control. Without moral self-control, you will not live a life of joy. You'll live a life of frustration. At many places along the way, the character in the movie could have taken the easy road out. He could have not studied. He could have done the easy thing. And it might not even have been the wrong decision. He had a kid. He could have stopped and got any job. I might even told him to do that. But he would have lost that moment. The moment at the end of sacrifice and diligence and discipline rarely fades. It's always there. That thing that's been achieved. Attending a party is not an achievement. Getting high is not an achievement. Getting likes is not an achievement. I suppose if I learned a TikTok dance, that would be an achievement, but it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Ed, yes. He wants to stay married, and something like that will always be out there, will always come back around to be used against me and everybody will have it saved somewhere. No, 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 no. That's the last thing I need. About 2 years ago, Adam came home once. He looked at us. He goes, we're just home by ourselves. He goes, you guys need more friends. And I looked at him and I said, at this age, we're looking at what friends we can get rid of. I was just kidding. Psalm 37:4 says this, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Real joy in life is not an emotion that comes and goes. That's this superficial happiness. If your happiness is determined by whether you go somewhere or not go somewhere, you don't have real joy. Joy is a deep-seated sense of everything being settled, of everything being right, of everything being okay. And listen, in the midst of great joy, everyone still can have a dark night of the soul. And have days when you wonder, really, is this all there is? Isn't there more? I don't know. We all struggle with those things. Philippians chapter 4, starting verse 11, says, I've learned the secret, whether I have plenty or whether I am in want. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Live a life building something. And the good thing is, all of us can build something. One of the things we can all do is we can be part of something bigger than ourselves, and we can build family. I just always like this picture. This was taken, I think, in 2004, 2005. We went to Rocky Mountain National Park. We went on a 3-mile walk as a family. That's Mills Lake behind us. So the pictures I always love. Live a life building family. Live a life building a legacy. Live a life building character. And none of those things happen easily. I think one of the worst things for character in people's life, easy wealth, inherited money, and just fame disconnected from achievement, is destructive. Just look at the newspaper someday. Here's what's great about this. However meager your means, however limited was your start, you can build something. You can be part of something bigger than yourself. I think we've lost some of that. One of the things that we do now, we were doing it just the other day. Yesterday, Michelle's mom had found a picture of her grandfather. And we were holding up the picture of the grandfather, and we thought, or she thought, that Adam, our son, might have looked a little bit like a grandfather. And so we pull out pictures and we compare and we look at these things because family's a little bigger than just ourselves. Faith is bigger than ourselves. We can participate. We automatically have family around the world in every nation, of every language, of every tribe. People who worship Jesus Christ. This is from 2012. This is from Costa Rica trip 1. Steve. We can be part of something bigger than ourselves. There's something, and then our Costa Rica trip 3, we went back here and visited what we started. We were the first people there. And it's this big, beautiful structure that thousands of people use that we're a part of. And I think we should also realize that this is always only the beginning. We live life now with an eye toward later in everything. Every decision toward later. A few months ago, I was talking to a group of people about money, and someone came up to me and said, "When did you and your wife sit down and talk about money as a couple?" And I said, "Our third date." Which is exactly true. I was reminding my wife of that last night. She goes, "Well, I had to find out early if you were worth sticking around for." By the way, 34 years later, she's still wondering. Romans 15:13 says this, may the God of hope fill you with all joy, even as you trust in him, that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. One of the reasons we worship on Sundays, we realize this is only the beginning. If your life, if your family legacy to this point has been bad, you can start a new legacy today. You don't have to repeat the mistakes your parents made, your grandparents made, your great-grandparents made. Every decision is toward later. Every financial decision should be toward later. A long-term perspective. This is why we celebrate. We celebrate because even if we live our full 80 years or 85 years, 90 if we're lucky, that long life is only the beginning. This world is going somewhere. Last week we talked about Jack Nicholson's character in the movie. What's life? He goes, the wheels on the bus go round and round. That's all it is. That's not all that life is. This world's going somewhere. You're going somewhere. You have immense value. You have immense value because Jesus Christ, God of the universe, died for you. And he rose again so you can have a new start. And this life, even if it's a full 90 years, will not be the sum total of our existence. It's only just the beginning. So we have hope. Will Smith, in the midst of these dire circumstances, trying to go through all this in rough economic times so he could get that job, in the most dire circumstances, he had hope. And at the end of the struggle, he had joy. We have joy even in dire circumstances here because we celebrate this new life each and every Sunday. We celebrate our potential each and every Sunday. As we realize everything worth building for happens over long term. If it's a bad week, if it's a bad month, and you know what? If it's a bad year, and this has been a bad year, it's not the end of the story.